night during the big concert show that they had, and I got to interview him over at one of the displays. And you know how when you meet someone and you just automatically click with them, and it's like, oh, you okay, yeah, you know, and I'm finishing that. All I have to say is he's got an amazing story to tell him about his family's connection with Elvis Presley. Jay Osmond is here. There he is. Look at you.
I tell you, this is probably one of my most fun moments I've had. My wife and I have had so much fun these last couple of days, going around, seeing all the exhibits and seeing the ripple effect that Elvis has had, the impact and an influence on each one of our lives. It's amazing the light that he has brought into this world, and it's amazing. And we had lunch with Don and Presley the other day, just to catch up on things that are just brought back so many memories as we talked yesterday in our experience with Elvis. And to see Glenn back there, and Alan Blythe, his wife Rita.
You guys, the Osmonds, have much more, as I started doing much more of an impact with Elvis, a connection with Elvis than I had originally anticipated. I've gone through and I've kind of edited down some of the imagery that we had. Yeah, I had to.
There's some clips of you shot.
First thing I want to show is just the Osmonds' connection with Vegas, and take a look at this billboard here.
Okay. Oh yeah.
So you guys, the Osmonds, we grew up with you. You guys were on TV, Andy Williams and all this stuff.
That's right.
What got the Osmonds to Vegas?
Well, we were performing with Nancy Sinatra in Vegas, and I don't know if some of you remember that, and it was really fun with Darlene with the Blossoms. Darlene Love,
yeah,
she was there in Vegas, and so we went over with to the International where Elvis was. So Nancy took the show over to and it became the Hilton.
And now
and that's where we met Mac Davis and the TCB Band and the Imperials, and so we were performing with Nancy, and we had come from a background with the Andy Williams show, a very, very tight, organized, really, I mean, it was like perfect, the dance moves, everything. And you told me you have a clip of that performing, and this is what Elvis saw in the lighting booth. He was watching us in the lighting booth perform at the International Hotel, and he saw us performing. And this kind of thing. I don't know if you have a clip on.
Do we have that? I'm not sure what they.
This is how we used to be until Elvis had that impact, and I want to show you the kind of impact Elvis had on us. I don't know if they have that clip up there, but anyway,
he's watching you.
But he was watching us
from the light booth.
The lighting booth, and we got a message from Nancy that Elvis would like to meet us. And of course, we were in shock, and we thought, wow, this is amazing. So we go up to his penthouse, and all of a sudden the doors open like that, and there's this big smile. He says, "Brothers, welcome." He says, "Come on in, brothers." And so I was 15 years old, and the impact that it had on my life is. We all changed that night, and there were these pinball games. He loved pinball, and televisions everywhere. I remember televisions, and I was playing this pinball game, and it had Las Vegas on it. And he comes up to me, he says, "Now, Jay, there's a secret to this game." He says, "You gotta hit the ball over in that corner." And I thought, this is really happening? Elvis Presley's telling me how to play pinball. It was like surreal to me, And I think back, and then he had. I know that he had this conversation with us, and how he was. He had this. First of all, he had this love for his fans, and he told us, brothers, I can see what's going on, and I want to help you. He said, "I know that you're heading towards success, and I'd like you to visit with you. Come back afterwards in my show." So we went back to when he did a show, and he introduces us in the audience, and that's on his Hillbilly album, Cat album, and we go backstage, and he says, "Okay, I got to be honest with you, brothers." He said, I love your act, and I think you're really good, and you sing great, and you play great, but you got to macho up your look, man. I could just feel him struggling with that, you know.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he says, "Come here, I want to show you something." So we go backstage. I mean, back to his dressing room there, and I think there's a clip where his closet. He opens up his closet.
Oh yeah,
and he sees
yeah,
all
with all
these
the
jumpsuits.
Yeah.
And those who have followed our family notice that we changed overnight.
Well, let's take a look at that. This is before Elvis. Take a look at this album cover.
Oh, those are an album.
There we go.
See, that was the album cover that we
That's before Elvis's influence on the boys. And then the next one is after Elvis has gotten a hold of it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Now, and by the way, these are all my albums that I had Jay sign the other night.
Oh, that's what I signed.
That was, yeah. When that happened, I thought, they're stealing Elvis's look. They're stealing it. You weren't stealing it.
You know what? He took the time to reach out to us and take the time and pull us in and to really take the time. And he got with Bill Ballou. And he got with him and he said, "Bill, I'll never forget this." And I thought, this is Elvis Presley, the busiest man in the world, taking the care and the time to help us. And he says, I want you to design similar to what I'm wearing. These guys need to look. He says, I want them to drive the girls crazy.
You're not going to do it in the cardigans.
I'll never forget that. And I go, okay. And then he said to us, he says, "First of all, brothers, you know I love you, but you got to lose the tap shoes, man. You got to lose it." And so that night we took the tap shoes away, and then so we did macho up our look, obviously, but it also impacted our music.
Right.
You'll notice that the music changed, and Crazy Horses was also influenced by Elvis, and Down by the Lazy River. Everything in our lives, you know, you think about the magic that this person had. Not only did he bring a unique talent to this world, but his humility that he had, and his love for the Lord, love for the country, and love for the fans. I tell you, and by talking with him, and we got those impressions. But look at all of you. You have the same impressions from him, and we got those feelings from him. And he told us, he says, "Brothers," he said, "if I could do it again, I would go out and shake hands with every one of my fans." And that really impacted us.
Yeah.
And that really, to that day, we were always, because he said the fans are so important to your career and your life. And he was right. And he prepared us for what was to come in the 70s when we hit the UK.
Right.
And I don't know if you have a clip at all.
Well, one thing I did want to talk about was that when he first put you in the jumpsuits.
Yeah.
And then he came back after seeing you and everybody in a white jumpsuit. And what was his response about all the brothers being all in white?
Oh, he thought it was amazing. He said, "That is cool." I don't remember the word he used.
But he had one problem with identification.
Okay, yes. Wait, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We had Bill Ballou designed that we all looked alike. And this bothered Elvis. He says, "Bill," he got with Bill and he said, "Bill, they need individualism. They're too much alike. They even smile alike, you know." And I'll never forget when he said that. They even smile alike. And so he says, change them, give them colors, And then he asked me, what is important to you? And I said, "Well, what would you like to be?" And I said, "A warrior." "Bill, write that down. A warrior." And he said, Wayne, what do you like, Wayne? And he says, I love to fly. So he says, wings, put wings on Wayne. So what he did is he individualized each one of us. And so that we have these jumpsuits and
by colors too.
By colors,
yeah.
And then Bill Ballew's friend, who later on in the 80s had a Ninja Turtle. Yeah, but he gave us these colors. And Bill Ballew's friend, who was Ninja Turtles designer, he says, I like what you did with the Osmonds. I'll give that to the Turtles. So he gave Donatello purple, and Donnie, and Michelangelo orange. And it was the funniest thing.
Who knew there was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Osmond connection like that?
Do you believe? That was so cool. I just thought there's some funny things that I wanted to.
So you guys with the Osmonds, as you go into the 70s and this impact of Elvis on your career, you had an unlikely fan. I mean, you didn't know that he was watching all those shows, but he had a connection to your family through the music, I think, and the sound of the brothers' voices.
Yeah, well, he saw some of the Andy Williams shows, and that he knew that he loved our family harmony, and his love for harmony, and he thought he knew that we could sing and dance, but he wanted to strengthen us. He wanted to help us, to move us forward, and he did. But I think he had more of an impact on me personally, the kind of person that he was to me as a brother. I just looked at him as like a brother, and you think Elvis Presley, and I was a little shocked, of course, at first, but when you get to know him, I felt, when he said up in his penthouse, he felt like he was in a fishbowl, and I could feel a sense that he was lonely, and but he wanted a family. He loved family. He loved my parents, and he had a great connection to my mother especially, and he.
What do you think that was?
I honestly believe because of he told my mother that he loved his mother so much and he missed her badly. And that he would call over to our suite at times and ask my father if he could speak to my mother, and he says, I remember one time he said to my mother, he says, I just want to talk about Jesus. He was, and he says, I love the Bible, and my mother was a theologian, and she loved the Bible, and she could talk to him. But my mother was very positive. I remember her saying on the phone one night, because I would eavesdrop a lot, and she said, now look at it this way, Elvis. And she remember her saying, without a struggle, there's no progress. And she was an amazing lady.
Yeah.
And she I remember her saying to him once, this too shall pass. And one time, though, it was really funny because my mother was in a conversation with some friends, and Alan came in and says, Mother, Elvis is on the phone. And she says, okay, tell him to hang on just a minute. I'll be right there. And I'm thinking, who tells Elvis Presley to hang on? It's like, really? But she looked at him like one of us, one of the brothers, And, back in those days, things were very tight in Las Vegas, and we all got to know each other different, times.
Yeah.
But I cherish my time, and that I had just a small piece of his life, and that he had a major part of my life.
Yeah.
Last few days ago when we were playing with 6 Wire, and James Garrett, and then John and Pam and Dennis and Darlene, and all these flashes of memories came back to my mind about how this guy is a superhero. Man, I would put him up against Spider-Man any day, wouldn't you?
We were with the jumpsuits, and he goes, look, he's got capes. He's Spider-Man. He's Batman.
He's Batman. That's right.
You said he comes out at night. He wears a cape. He's got mini Batmobiles. And you never see Batman and Elvis together. He's Batman.
One of the greatest things I think he did for us, besides change our look, our music, our dancing, is this. He stood one day. He said, brothers, you need some karate in your act. And so I know that I think you have a couple clips.
I got a still here of you guys in karate class. Now, don't mention your teacher yet.
Oh, okay.
You know, so there are the Osmonds getting a little macho, and Elvis's own karate instructor, Ed Parker, couldn't take you.
That's right.
So he told the Osmonds about an up-and-coming karate instructor.
That's right. This up and coming, he's going to be really, really good. He says he has all these schools, and his name is Chuck Norris. And so Chuck became a great friend, and he gave us karate lessons. I think you've got a clip of us.
I don't know if we've got it. We've had a bunch of stuff we had to go through.
And then what Elvis loved the most, not the most, but one of the funny things that I would remember seeing him up in the lighting booth was that he was laughing every time little Jimmy would come out, because Jimmy was the first Elvis impressionist.
That's
and
right.
he would sing Heartbreak Hotel.
Yeah.
And Elvis would just crack up every time. And so he had Frank Sinatra come in one night, and Jimmy had to learn That's Life. And Frank Sinatra threw his hat at Jimmy, and this is when we were with Nancy Sinatra. And you know, the memories that they have. But you know, one of the greatest memories of my life and honors was to be asked to play in the TCB band.
That was one of I wanted to talk about your connection with Ron Tutt.
Well, Daryl Toney, who was an amazing Imperials, connected us with Dennis Jail, and so. And then Ronnie was actually my drum teacher. Ronnie played with us in the 80s. He was on tour with us. And Ronnie and I became really good, really close. And what a great Christian, what a great man he was. But then to be asked to fill in for him when he broke his hip, when we were in Buxton, England, and you can see the clip. I don't know if you have, but you can Google it. But and then to see, oh man, James Burton and Glenn Hardin. I mean, those guys playing with me, and to play, that was the most amazing moment of my life, to play that.
Giving back to your teacher.
Giving back to the teacher.
Yeah, Ron Tutt.
Ron Tutt.
Yeah.
We spoke to his sweet wife Donna the other day, and she says, "Go be sure to see his exhibit." And I saw those drums, and I think that was the set I played on one time. and you know, but Ronnie was he told me, he says the reason he got the job with Elvis was after all those he was,
they had auditions.
Yeah. Everybody played on his drums, and by the time it was over, he never had a chance until the very end. And Elvis said, "No, we're going to listen to you. You know, you came all this way." And the reason he said that he got the job was because he followed Elvis. He wasn't just there to show off his skills, but he knew how to play. He knew how to be a team player. And you know, when I did that song "Burnin' Love" the other night, you'll notice that it rushes a little bit. The speed, it gets a little faster. And I asked Ronnie, why did you pick up the tempo? He says, "Well, because Elvis did."
Follow him.
And I thought, wow, is that the coolest thing? And so, when I was singing "Burnin' Love," it just brought that memory back.
Now, you've met a lot of people. You knew the king of rock and roll, but you also met someone else of royalty, and I just had to show this photo. There you are. I mean, so you worked and knew the king of rock and roll, and you met the queen. So the Osmonds
I've been very blessed.
Worldwide.
We've been very blessed as a family, and I wrote. It took me 5 years to write a musical about our life, and it's going to be coming to America. It went over the UK.
You read my mind, because I knew that you had worked, and you told me something interesting, and it's true about life. Everybody has their version of the truth, and if 5 people are in a room, there are 5 versions of that story. But you've written the Osmonds story,
and this is from my eyes and how I saw growing up as an Osmond. And
we do have a clip of that, of the sequence from the show where the brothers
meet Elvis.
But I want you to just talk just for a second before we show that about how was it to condense a story like the Osmonds into...
It was the hardest thing I've ever done. 5 years, and when I turned it in to the producers, they said I had 3 musicals because I had so many stories. But it was the hardest thing to condense it, to make it live, to pace. You know, the pacing was important.
Yeah.
So there are 30 songs in there, and but it was very, very, it was very challenging. My wife had she helped me so much put it together.
You had something mystical happen though about a call to move that ended up coming a reason why something happened to you. You're a firm believer in there are things that happen for a reason.
We were being very prayerful about where we needed to go and what was the next step in our lives. And we were both my wife and I were living in St. George, Utah. And we both felt, now, not at the same time. In the morning, my wife felt we need to go to England for some reason. Mm-hmm. And she didn't want to tell me because we had already moved so many times. And I didn't. And later on, I got the feeling that we needed to go to England. And so at dinner time, I said, sweetheart, I just have to tell you, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I think we need to go to England. She says, thank goodness you were listening. We were being very prayerful, so we just picked up, and within that month, we were living in England, and we didn't know why. And so our Robert Wells and Maria Wells, our friends, and Billy Dean said, let's go to Sweden and for a weekend. So we went to Sweden, and there was the producer right there who came up to me, and he said, Bosa is his name, Bosa Andrus, and he said, I want to do a show on you. I want to do a musical about your life. And I says, well, we're writing a book. And he says, no, I want it in a living memoir. And so that's when the musical idea happened. And he says, but you have to move to England. Because with the producers are here, and Andrew Lloyd Webber's producers and directors and writers are here, and they need you here. And I said, we just moved. So there's where you need to listen. That's testimony to me to listen to impressions.
So you work on this. You take it into the offices. You've got 3 musicals, so you've got to start cutting.
That's been hard.
But one thing survived, many things I'm sure survived, but one of the things not lost in the edit was your version on stage in the musical of the moment that Elvis is a part of the life of the Osmonds. Is that a good setup for
That's a good setup. I don't know what clip you have here. Let's see.
Next up, we were off to play Vegas, and one night after the show, we had another royal visitation.
The king! Oh, well, just call me Elvis. Brothers, I'm a big fan, but you need to match up your act. I'm gonna send over my karate guy, show you a few moves. Drive the girls crazy. Oh, I gotta do something about your look. Ooh, yeah. Come on over, hang out. I play some pinball.
That was, that was so fun, that part. And but when we went to meet Elvis, that was, we had this big, he had this big guitar. It was all flowers, and it says, welcome to the Hilton. Love, Elvis and the Colonel.
Wow.
And the Colonel came backstage and he said, now, I want you guys to be, listen carefully to what he says, because he respects you, but trust me, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. I think that's proven all these years.
But we were respectful. We were under the impression that he was very private. So we never took pictures, and like a lot of people, Mac Davis, a lot of people didn't. And I regret that. But we respected that. But still, he had a tremendous impact on my life personally.
I'm so glad you were able to come and share the Osmonds story and your story with
Thank you.
Elvis. And for those of us out there, myself included, who want to go see the Osmond story on stage.
Well, do you know when you can see the clips? I sent a lot of clips. If you look at Jay Osmond Facebook on Osmond Connection, we're going to put a lot of those clips on there.
Great, and we'll
So-
keep and news of when you guys.
And then keep you updated. Yeah.
There you go. You're very active on social media, so
Yeah.
send them a message, tell them hello, and tell them you appreciate what the Osmonds did. And I think the Osmonds look pretty cool in those jumpsuits.
Well, thank
man.
you.
Jay Osmond, everybody.
Thank you very much.